It's mid-May now. The sun is shining today instead of rain like the last 2 days. Welcome back to our kitchen garden. The footage you're about to see began being filmed in the middle of April. So it's been a month. We've been working on this project on and off. We think we're finished now, and we can give you a look at what we've done to help our asparagus be able to grow better and without as much weed pressure. So caring for it in the years to come should be much easier. From about 2015 until 2021, the bottom of our garden fencing came right about here, when this was a garden fenced in with wire and stake post, regular fencing. So this bottom whole section here that was at the edge of the fencing was asparagus beds. We had over 100 asparagus plants. And since we built these walls, we did shrink the garden in a little bit and built those walls. We left the asparagus bed outside to let it grow wild, but part of that growing wild meant I wasn't keeping up with the weeds. Some morning glory seeds managed to get in, which are not pleasant to fight, and I just kind of gave up on the asparagus. So my husband has gone through this morning and dug out what asparagus plants he can still find. And our plan to be able to have asparagus and not fight the weeds so much, which is always what we're working harder to do, is have less weeds in the garden, spend less time weeding and more time growing, is we bought these little small raised beds. They were about $62 on Amazon. They're approximately 3 by 6 by 18 inches. We just wanted something quick that we didn't have to build. And he's going to level the ground out in here, and we have 5 of those right now. I think we could fit 6 total beds in this length, but we just started with 5. And we're going to line them up in the middle, and we made sure that the measurements on both sides were going to be wide enough to do our electric push mower. And he's going to plant grass in here so that there's no more weeds coming up, spreading more weed seeds, and it will be easier to keep the asparagus bed clean of weeds once we have a fresh start. So we'll see how that project goes today if we get it done before the rain. At least the first bed in, so the asparagus plants can be put back into the dirt.
Doing a little chips for worm food in the bottom too. Very pretty though. They're going to look super nice with a nice graded path here.
My husband finished the first 3 beds and filled them with our older asparagus plants on day 1. A few days later, he leveled and installed the last 2 beds and filled them with compost as well. Now, he was out of town for 4 days traveling with a family member for their medical treatment when the new asparagus plants arrived, so it was my part to get them safely tucked away into their new home. These beds do not have any hardware cloth or any kind of pest barrier. underneath them, between them and the native soil underneath. And the two reasons for that are, number one, asparagus has roots that can grow down many, many feet. So we didn't want to interfere with any of that growth. But number two, rodents and such pests, they can all climb. So if a vole or a mole wants to get into your raised bed, they'll just come from the top. So we went ahead and did no weed barrier, or not weed barrier, a pest barrier underneath these beds. I know I planted these new asparagus plants somewhat closer together than would be recommended. I have 3 rows of 7 in each bed, but I did that in case a few of the plants didn't grow. I still wanted to have full beds of asparagus. I definitely took my time planting these. I was not in a hurry. I wanted an excuse to be out in the sunshine as long as possible. It was still cool during the month. I think this was April when I planted these. Obviously, I have a little windbreaker on to keep warm. But right now, while I'm doing this voiceover, it's mid-July, and the high yesterday and today were 100 degrees, and it has been very hot altogether for the last 6 or 7 weeks. So those cool days are much to be coveted right now. These beds started out a little low, like the compost probably settled between the time when my husband filled the bed and when I got out there to plant. So it may look like I'm not planting the asparagus deep enough, but I know that I'm going to come in and add another 2 to 4 inches of compost across the top of both of the beds. So that's why I'm planting them the way that I am. Confession time. I am not known as the best of drivers, so I rarely choose to drive the dingo, but I preferred to take the risk over hauling as much compost as I needed, as far as it was needed. No harm occurred, though. I did have a few scary moments, which I did not record for evidence. Needless to say, I would have been scolded or told to get off the machine if there had been another adult witnessing some of the scary moments that I had. All right, one more trip. And this is how everything looked at the end of my workday. Now let's fast forward a bit and I bring you to what it looked like 1 month later during the month of May. I did purposely plant some sunflowers at the end of each row. That's a volunteer. Chamomile, and you may or may not be able to see a few asparagus plants still in the walkway here. They were late to come up. They didn't get transplanted. They may never get transplanted. They may just be mowed over. But the first 3 beds have the asparagus plants that were transferred from the existing ground bed. And the last 2 beds have the transplants that were put in a month ago. And it looks like they've all come up. Maybe one in this bed didn't come up. and one in that bed. But we did save a lot of other asparagus plants and planted them somewhere else. So if we need to transplant them back in here, if there ends up being any blank spots, we can make sure we've made the best use of everything here. This is how easy we hope to keep the weeding. Just pulling out little ones as we seed them. From the other end, more sunflower plants. And we have left the sides wide enough for our mower. There are grass seeds in here. My husband doesn't want me walking in here a lot, but we did come in today and finish up by putting the twine on the stakes. And the purpose for that, if you've ever grown asparagus before, you know the plants get very tall and bushy by the end of summer, and then they lay over everywhere. And I really still wanted to be able to access this walkway. These asparagus will probably get mowed down. I wanted to still be able to access the back side of this bed so that I can pick green beans, tomatoes, strawberries. So we are going to use the twine, hopefully, to tuck the plants back in. If they do grow out, we'll just tuck them back in, and that will hold them up long enough for me to be able to do what I need to in the beds this summer. This whole section here was composted wood chips. We added more and more wood chips every year for 5 or 6 or 7 years. So all of the soil and compost that is in this ground here is very favorable for the asparagus. I really hope this ends up working well and giving us lots of asparagus over the years. We wanted a lot of asparagus plants, and we didn't want them in the main part of the kitchen garden because of how large the plants are by the end of summer. Didn't want to have to walk past them all the time and be rubbed on by the fronds. And they are perennial, so they come back year after year, so they need a permanent location. So hopefully this one works out for them, and we will enjoy asparagus for many years to come. Well, that's our memory making moment for this week. The asparagus beds are now complete. I hope you have a great day.